Hello YouTube. I do not have time to make a refined video response. I also do not have time to edit. So do forgive me if I misspeak. I am appealing to the grammar police in the audience. Also, do overlook my use of music in the video. It helps me to concentrate. So, I will attempt to address this video as I drive from home to my workplace. But don't fret. No one else is on the road with me, so the only person that I am endangering is myself, and I am willing to take that risk. So again, I apologize for the raw nature of my reply. For those who have not viewed the video Alex Jones, James Yeager, and the NRA terrorists, well, I suggest you do. I should be able to place a link in the below section. Anyway, this video reply may not make sense if you do not view that. First, Michael, I just finished viewing your video and I respect this is your opinion. I respect this is your position. I am of the opinion that we cannot sit on our hands and expect reality to change. We have to do something to make it change, hopefully in a positive direction. Rational action must take place. Now, let's jump into this, okay? It was unclear if you were stating we need better means of inspecting the past of others or that we do not have one in place. So, do note, in case the latter is true, that we already have registration for weapons in reality. We already have sufficient checks for most cases, I would even state. Anytime you go to an FFL dealer, that is a Federal Firearms License dealer, to finalize a purchase, at that time you submit information is collected, and a background check is done. At least that has always been my experience as a gun owner. Now, putting a realistic plan in place, which closes the reported gun hole loop so we cannot deal weapons at gun shows illegally, let's say, well, that's a different situation, isn't it? Selling weapons in shady ways is not something in which I promote, and there are some dealers out there who do this. And there are some dealers also at these gun shows who do everything they can to make sure that they are selling to a person who should have access to a weapon. You stated we do not build cars to kill a person. Well, one can say that a weapon is constructed for the purpose of protection. This is not necessarily with the intent to kill, but to stop the threat. So what comes of this sort of reasoning? Nothing really if egos get in the way. I suggest that if we appeal to our rational state, or the state in which we employ in order to be rational, then we will realize it comes down to intention of use. Even if the anticipated outcome was to kill, means little in relation to your argument. Well, that is if honesty is preserved. No matter how we examine the main issue, it points to morality not being able to be legislated. The use of the weapon for senseless violence is a matter of volition, more than having the ability to own guns, certain types of guns, or particular types of hardware, what is, well, foolishly considered high-capacity magazines. More than having the ability to do these things, we need to attack the building blocks of the current culture and the economic realities. I think you and I both agree on this. A point about high-capacity magazines. We should realize this is really an advertisement gimmick, in my opinion, either for one's position or for the sale of the product. This depends on who you are addressing and why. So, do keep that in mind. However, in relation to my isolated claim that should be considered separate from the whole, speaking of magazines here, a standard capacity must be set before the determination of what is high is defined. I suggest standard is the state for which the weapon is made for. So if a semi-automatic was originally constructed to require a 17-round magazine, then this should be considered normal for that weapon. When one refers to high capacity, they are addressing something that is greater than normal in degree. Again, I argue the creator of said weapon, not our subjective stance, is what determines what is normal for that particular weapon. This may be based on the particular intention of that tool. Now, the point regarding cars and the frequent claim that car death is greater than gun death. Maybe we should regulate cars. Well, I hear this a lot from those who argue or debate for the purpose of protecting our Second Amendment rights. Well, I would not make this comment unless I was indirectly expressing moderate ridicule. Other than that, I don't think it serves really any purpose, though true. Even with all the regulations on cars that guns do not currently have, this really proves my point. How we use something is a matter of discernment. You made the point that states with higher levels of gun ownership, there is higher levels of homicide. Of course, it would be probable that if more of something existed, that it could be used. This does not direct us to intention of use. It also does not allude to the claim that it is as probable that if less existed, less would be used. What I mean by existing is legal availability. I am not sure what you are referring to when you use that word. Now, suicide and guns. Very emotional subject, I do understand. The issue of access to a weapon is the only thing one can tie to suicide when discussing the availability of a tool that can help in the termination of one's life. If I am wrong, please do correct me. I advocate that if one would generate secure methods for storage, and if gun owners understood the mental and emotional health of the occupants of their residence, that our current numerical representation would greatly diminish. Or at least, I can honestly say, I believe that it would diminish. Maybe I should remove the adverb greatly. Now, on to the subject of accidental deaths and guns. Decreasing the amount of weapons will not necessarily decrease accidental deaths. I would make the claim, though I do not have the evidence due to there not being a study that I know of, but I would make the claim that a great amount of death would be prevented with two actions. One, making sure all who would be around guns had education regarding the proper use of said weapon that may be in front of them. This would require one, use common sense and adhere to safety rules, and two, periodically inspecting and cleaning the weapon. Now, Michael, making the implication that a gun for some people is more important than a child's life, well, that was an appeal to emotionalism and a low blow as far as I'm concerned. This type of action is what creates inability to have meaningful exchanges. Now, a thought regarding loaded indicators on weapons. One of the weapons in which I own is a Ruger SR9C, C meaning compact. And that particular weapon, which I currently use as my daily carry weapon as I have a concealed carry license, I find to be dangerous. I think in the hands of the wrong individual, this supposed safety feature encourages careless behavior. Also, if one is taught to always assume the gun is loaded, then it is of little significance. As far as the comment you made regarding use of a gun for home protection, I do not know about the validity of your statistics. I do know that I personally have witnessed the relief that came from the availability and proper use of a gun when ridding the occupants of a criminal threat. Now, do note, the comment that X amount of children dies of guns is another appeal to emotions. It is potentially inflammatory in nature. Also, it does not address the specific details of said incident. Actions which examined may reveal relevant details. The skinny, let's say. The skinny, I am sure, which would provide clarity. Oh, one word about semi-automatic weapons that are considered assault weapons. The number one issue here is mislabeling. This is done to cause, of course, confusion. The word assault is merely a device to invite emotion into the conversation and to kill orderly, logical thought. There is a difference between pulling the trigger and having a weapon that will repeatedly fire until all of the rounds are expended and one that will not. Just because a semi-automatic and a fully automatic rifle looks alike does not mean that the similarities in physical appearance should encourage others to classify it as the same thing. Many in the media will appeal to various cosmetic differences and deem said weapon that they have their attention upon at the time as evil. Hence those menacing black guns. There are semi-automatic hunting rifles, which action, or the main working parts, is basically the same as something more scary looking to some people, like an AR-15, an AK-47, or an AK-74, even though I will admit that most semi-automatic hunting rifles have more in common cosmetically, in my opinion, with the AR-15. However, the superficial parts, what distinguishes them cosmetically, is the big visual distinction here. The visual characteristics that attract their attention. One in which people use to their advantage when promoting their political agenda. One that, in some people's mind, makes a particular gun a scary thing. Also, I have witnessed members of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms not clearly be able to define an assault rifle. Yet there are many people who will willfully abuse this word so that they can promote what they consider to be a utopia. One that would exist if a weapon of destruction simply didn't exist. Never mind addressing the contents of one's cognition. And yet, they do not have the qualifications that people within this organization has. You see, Michael, the problem is that drawing a clear differentiation that extends beyond the action of the weapon is very difficult, and therefore renders a conversation with those who are uneducated about weapons, well, to be a very difficult task. Michael, I do know I did not address all of your video, but time is not on my side as I have arrived at my destination. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to address these specific points. No matter if we continue this communication or agree to disagree, we, meaning mentally stable people with no want to harm another, are not ones who employ terror as a political weapon. It is because the criminal element exists that draws me to responsibly use a weapon to protect myself and those that I love. I do appreciate your passion, but think you are missing the mark. Thank you for your time.